I've got clear memories of sitting on the side of the road bawling my eyes out because I was in so much pain. And I just asked myself, do you want to succeed? And it's unequivocally yes. I just have to get up. There's no choice. If you want to succeed, you just have to get up.
This is Running for Real, the podcast for runners who know that for every runner's high, there are just as many lows. All those just missed PRs, easy runs that feel hard, injury blues, and more. Each week, we'll talk to running, health, and wellness experts about their highs, lows, and best advice to build our confidence. Running for Real is about being honest, being brave, and most of all, not feeling alone. And now here's our host, who loves the Running for Real Superstars community, Tina Muir.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to episode 47 of the Running for Real podcast. Can't believe we are closing in on 50 already. And by the way, guys, just a sneak peek, 50 is going to be a pretty special one with someone I have been trying to get for rather a long time. I am excited. I'll give you a clue to finally get her on the podcast. You'll find out who that is in just a few episodes. Speaking of which, right now I am currently on maternity leave as I am recording these ahead of time. I don't know if my little girl has yet joined me in the world or if she is still nicely in my belly, but either way, I am not really doing too much right now, but I'd still love to hear from you. I'd still love to see an iTunes review if you have a few moments, but no pressure. And hope everything is going well with you. Now, last week we had Hayo Seppelt. He is the journalist, yes, the one, who broke the news about the Russian doping scandal a few years ago with his documentary that came out. Now, that was a very honest and revealing interview, one-of-a-kind episode, and so make sure if you have not checked that one out, you go back, as this Getting Him was pretty exclusive and pretty cool to kind of find out some things you're not going to hear anywhere else. So make sure you go listen to that one. Now, today we're talking to Kirrily, who is yet another everyday runner guest who is doing something extraordinary. Now, I really wanted to show you with these episodes, with these inspiring guests, that doing something that challenges you, where you're helping others, that just makes you feel alive, isn't just for elite runners training for the Olympics, but it's something that you too can do something. So Kirrily is such a great example, and she's doing it for a great cause. So hopefully it's going to give you something to think about in your future as well. Now, before we do get to the interview, as I mentioned earlier, if you have been enjoying this podcast, can I just ask you if you could leave me a little review on iTunes? It would mean the world and will help so much for my podcast rank, especially during this time when I'm trying to juggle, hopefully by now, being a new mother and looking after her. Now, after a quick word from V and Body Health, we will be right to the interview. Both of these sponsors could happily join you on one of your future adventure, just like Kirrily's. So hopefully you go check them out. All right, on to the interview. You know, when you're out there running and you're really struggling and you do listen to music just to kind of help get you through, the quality of the headphones really makes such a huge difference. And V, in addition to being a great running buddy and training partner, has amazing sound. Make sure you check it out at getv.com/running for real. New year, new you. Well, kind of. By now, most of us know that big New Year's resolutions really don't stick most of the time. But small ones that we can actually stick to, they will make a heck of a difference. Just like adding Body Health Perfect Amino to your routine made a big difference for me, and it could to you too. Kirrily, thank you so much for joining me on the Running for Real podcast. I'm really excited to learn from you, be inspired by you, and I know my audience are just going to find your story and what you're doing absolutely motivational and insightful. So thanks so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
I know this is exciting, and I'm trying to make these episodes early in the year of 2018 just kind of game-changing in a lot of ways, showing people that everyone can do something extraordinary. Everyone can do things to help other people. And just because, we may not feel like we are, the fastest or the podium runner or whatever that may be, it doesn't mean that you can't do things to help others. And you are a perfect example of that, of what you've been doing. And so We'll get into that in just a second. But firstly, for those listeners, tell us about kind of your running background up to this point. Like, when did you discover you liked running, and kind of what your running life has looked like up to now?
Okay. So I guess I enjoyed running when I was a kid. We did cross-country running at school and that sort of thing, and absolutely loved that. Then I went to university and discovered partying and alcohol and everything else that goes with uni. And sport really pretty much dropped out of the picture for about around sort of 17 years sort of thing. I did a little patch of sport here and there, but it was really when I was about 37 years old that I was sitting on the lounge one day feeling really awful, starting to gain a lot of weight, not very happy, very stressed from work. And I was having a good old whinge about life, and my partner said to me, well, you know what I think you need to do? I think you need to get a hobby. And I tried painting and a few other things, and it just didn't work. I was pretty bad at it, for one thing. But and then I remembered that I really enjoyed running. So I jumped off the lounge one Sunday afternoon and went for a run around the block, collapsed back down on the lounge, red-faced. But, yeah, the bug had bit then. And so I set myself the goal of running 10 kilometres.
So can I just pause you there? Even that moment there, when you said you got back, survived, red-faced, probably realised how out of shape you were compared to what you thought. Yep. You said that the bug kind of had bit you even at that point. Was it kind of wow, I'm really out of it. I really need to get myself together. Or was it a kind of, you know what, this is a challenge. I'm gonna take this on. It
was more a feeling, it was both of those, I think, and also a feeling of actually I really enjoyed that. It hurt, and I feel a little ill, but, actually I felt good. I felt a buzz. Yeah. I felt the buzz going, I think is a good way to describe it. Yeah, the twinkle was in the eye at that stage, yeah, definitely.
So then the 10K, you were just saying?
Yeah. So I set the goal of 10K and started working towards that. And really, I guess my fitness increased reasonably quickly. At that stage, I had no idea of how anyone could ever possibly run a half marathon. That was just a staggering distance to me. And so then, but I just kept working away at it. What I would do is I would set myself a distance goal like 5 kilometres or 7 kilometres, and I would run bits and I'd walk bits. And then I would kind of work up to being able to run all of that distance. Is sort of how I ended up increasing it. But really what happened then was when I discovered trail running. That my distances really started to increase, because I had always enjoyed bushwalking, and trail running was the thing that combined, I guess, the running and my passion for being out in the bush. Yes. And distance stopped being relevant at that point. And so I ended up completing my first 100K race in a bit over 18 months. And then the distances just keep growing from there. So
that's one way of putting it.
And in 2017, I don't know how much detail you want, but in 2017, I completed a 1,300 kilometre run through New South Wales. So I ran from the border of New South Wales to the coast, and over 19 days. So it was 32 marathons in 19 days.
Amazing. And you mentioned in there that when you first did that 10K, you couldn't wrap your brain around how someone could possibly even run a half marathon. So what would you like to say to someone listening now who just heard what you just said and is thinking, there's no way I could ever do that? There's absolutely not so much a half marathon, but doing the 19 marathons back to back. Like how, was that what you said? 19? No.
30. No, it was 32 marathons in 19 days.
Oh, that was it. I've got the wrong way around. Someone thinking, I could never do that. But then you had that same feeling of even getting from a 10K to a half, which is just another but still another 6 or 7 miles. So what would you like to say to people who are kind of listening to what you just said and thinking, there's no way?
Look, it's... First of all, you've got to want to do it. I think for me, it wasn't about the numbers as such. At different times it has become about the numbers, but it's certainly just about being able to explore trail. And so to be able to get into some of the places that I wanted to do, I had to be able to run further. So I in a way, I would suggest just ignoring the numbers and just find ways of moving. Don't worry about running even. Just walk and find ways of moving that distance, and then eventually you'll be able to run it.
Mm-hmm.
But it really comes down to wanting to do it as well. It's got to be something that's your passion and your desire, not something that's borrowed from other people.
Yes.
You see quite a bit in distance running, and particularly in ultra, that people get a bit caught up in because everyone else is running 100K or running 50K, they feel the pressure to then have to do that themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you're working from a sense of pressure rather than the passion, I think it becomes a struggle. I think it becomes very difficult. But anyone can do it. It's just a matter of training and working at it and building up the strength slowly and letting your body and mind adjust to it to be able to get there.
Okay. And then, going on from that, you having run more than 500 miles continuously, for someone thinking, how does someone build up their training to that point? Maybe give us a bit of an insight what that kind of looks like. I guess starting with the White Ribbon Ultra that you did in 12 days. How did you keep going, and how did you build up to getting to the point where that was actually something you could realistically accomplish?
The training has varied quite a lot over time. I've had to work out what works for my body, and I think that's one thing, is that the training for that sort of distance is different for everyone because we have different genetics, basically. So different strengths and weaknesses, different things we have to work on. When I was preparing for the White Ribbon Ultra, which was 860 kilometres in 12 days, I really focused on backing up, because the challenge isn't so much the running, it's putting your feet on the floor the next day and getting up and doing it again. So it's that backup that you need to be able to do. Being able to do it day after day after day is the bit that hurts. And so that's what I trained for. So a lot of high intensity training, pushing myself to exhaustion, then getting up and doing it again the next day. And I would do that for 12 days straight. And then I'd have my rest days. Because really what you're also trying to train, apart from getting conditioning in your body, is your mind.
Yes.
To be able to deal with the pain. It is a lot of pain management to do something like that. So it's about mental conditioning as much as physical conditioning.
So what kind of things did you do to condition your mind in that way?
For the White Ribbon Ultra?
Yeah, any of them, I guess.
Or any of them? Yeah, I guess the mental challenges have changed over time. So what I do to kind of push the envelope and really, I guess, work on my mindset has changed a lot over time. So for something like the White Ribbon Ultra, prior to that run, my longest run before that was 262 kilometres. So it was a 600-kilometre step up. So it was just trying to get my head around the numbers. So in that, apart from doing the conditioning work that I was talking about, also talking to people that had done that distance.
Okay.
And normalising it. Yeah, that's one of the principles I work with, is normalising the extraordinary. So going out and talking to people that have done things, reading as much as you can, just making it a normal part of your life to be able to run that sort of distance. I find that's really useful. And as I said, pushing yourself physically in order to have to deal with the mental side of pain and exhaustion and fatigue.
Yeah.
Practice makes perfect. With the one I did in 2017, so the 1,300-kilometre run, I sat down in January and worked out what I needed to do. So the run was in September, and I sat down in January and sort of worked through what I thought I needed to do to push myself mentally. And that involved actually, and I combined a bit of travel with it. I headed over to Peru in South America and did what I call my 15 days of awesome. I did a marathon, a solo trek in a remote part of the Andes, 130-kilometre solo trek, and then a mountain bike race all within 15 days. So completely out of my sort of familiar environment, pushing myself physically, pushing myself at altitude, and also a lot of dependence on myself in terms of doing fairly extreme activities in remote areas on my own. So that was amazing. My mindset shifted enormously during those 15 days.
That's great. And I think, you mentioned about going to do these things, proving that you can do them along the way, and that helping. And I think it is about taking those steps towards the intermediate steps towards that big goal. And you've mentioned that, and that is helpful. And then I really like what you said about normalizing it, because that's actually my intention with these episodes, is to kind of show people that you, Kirrily, you're just like anyone else. You're not some runner who has been, running 50 miles as a 10-year-old and just happens to have this like superpower. You are, a regular person who has been able to do things like this, and these, like you said, extraordinary things, but by normalizing it. So I'm hoping with these episodes, and you said talking to other people, and, listeners, you can do that too. Talk to other people, learn from other people who have done these things, and showing that it's not, something that, oh, well, that's all right for them. They can do it because they're talented. But it's a case of, like you said, wanting to do it and being prepared to put yourself out there. So thank you for mentioning that. Now, you said about the most difficult thing in these challenges when they are multiple day events is, getting your feet back on the floor the next day. Now, I think most of us can understand that from most runners have had some race at some point where you've stopped to walk or you've stopped to quit, and you've got going again, but the going again feels 100 times worse than had you just kept going. So what allowed you, what helped you get back going again each morning when you got out of bed and you were exhausted and sore and tired? What was it that motivated you to just, I can do this, rather than thinking, oh, this is just going to be too hard?
I don't ever let myself off the hook. It didn't even occur to me to think that it's too hard. So for my particularly one in 2017 and my White Ribbon Ultra as well, at no point did I have the thought that I was actually going to stop. So gosh.
So what did you tell yourself in the low moments then? If that's the case?
Yeah, so what I ask myself is, because you do have the low moments, it's absolutely. In the 2017 run, I've got clear memories of sitting on the side of the road bawling my eyes out because I was in so much pain. And I just asked myself, do you want to succeed? And it's unequivocally yes. And so I just have to get up. There's no choice. If you want to succeed, you just have to get up and just start moving. Like I said, you don't have to be running at Olympic pace. You just have to be moving forward. And then eventually you're able to turn that sort of very slow walk into a faster walk, and then into a bit of running or jogging. And you just have to find, I try and run, change my gait and all sorts of things in order to just find something that's a little bit more comfortable. And I distract my brain, all sorts of things. So I guess the times that I have DNF'd in a race, I think there's about 3 times that I've had a DNF, 3 or 4. I just haven't wanted it enough. I was there for all the wrong reasons. So it's really comes down to that question of, how much do you want it? And when I'm on those big runs, I want it. Yeah. There's no question about it.
So I think that's a good lesson for people to learn, even if you're doing races like a 5K or a 10K or a marathon where, you still have that option to drop out. But like Kirrily said, you've got to think to yourself, how bad do I want this? Am I prepared to give up everything I've done, all this training I've done now? I didn't do all of that for no reason. You have to just keep reminding yourself that you do want this, and yes, it hurts, but at the end of the day, you're choosing to be out there. So I think that's good that you mentioned that. Now, I wanted to talk about your company. You are the co-founder of Run Against Violence. So maybe tell us a bit about what it is for those who do not know, and kind of why this became what fueled you to do a lot of these events.
So Run Against Violence is a member association. We're a not-for-profit and we're a volunteer association that uses running and other sporting activities to help engage communities, the broader community, in family violence prevention.
Yep.
So it started after I did the White Ribbon Ultra. When I did that run for White Ribbon, it was really, at that stage in my mind, just another charity run. I was going out to do some fundraising for them and some community engagement in regional New South Wales. But it was at the end of that, I sat down with my crew and we were all, I guess, shocked at what we'd discovered, how pervasive the issue was, and we wanted to do more. But we'd also discovered that running was just a fantastic way to get the broader community engaged, because people would start coming up and talking to me about the running. So they'd ask, how many pairs of shoes I'd gone through and how were my legs and did I have blisters and how did I train for it and all that sort of stuff. And then they'd start to ask questions about family violence and domestic violence. And so we found it was a really good lead-in. So we founded Run Against Violence as a result of that, and that was back in 2014. And so we've been using running since then to just start the conversation. That's what we see our role is to start the conversation so that people know that they can learn about family violence, how to recognise it, what to do, how to respond to it. And also it provides a really fantastic environment and a safe environment for people to start talking about their experiences with family violence and starting to reach out. So we then help, I guess, provide the conduit for people to access services, support services and that sort of thing when they need them.
Yeah. And then just on like the very, very basic level, when you say family violence, how common is this and what kind of things are we talking about here?
It's incredibly common. So one of the statistics that I use is that during my 1,300-kilometre run, I took about 1.7 million steps. And each one of those steps represents an Australian who experienced family violence before their 15th birthday. So we have roughly about 24 million people in Australia. So it's actually a fairly high percentage of people. It is really common. It comes in lots of different forms. It can be physical abuse that goes on, mental, emotional abuse, and also when you start looking at things like intimate partner abuse, then it can take on dimensions of financial abuse and all sorts of things. So it is quite common, and the peak of it, the pinnacle of it, is homicide. In Australia, we have around one woman a week killed by a current or former intimate partner, and about one man a month killed by a current or former intimate partner. So, it's a big issue for our communities.
Mm-hmm. And what was it? When was it that you kind of became interested that this was something you were passionate about, and not only passionate about it, but passionate enough to, do all these things that are, beyond just I'm going to run a marathon. When did that kind of come about, and what led you to kind of really feel like this is something to get behind?
I guess the first impetus was prior to the White Ribbon Ultra. We had a spate of murders in Sydney that were reported in the news. So there was 3 women killed in quite quick succession, and it was at that point that I heard the statistic of one woman a week, and I didn't believe it. I sort of thought, it can't be real. This is Australia. We don't have these sorts of problems, because I'd never had any exposure to it as an issue, really. I knew it went on, but just didn't realise the extent of it. Yeah. And so when I researched that statistic and found out it was actually real, that was the motivation to contact White Ribbon. But it was really during that ultra in 2014 that all the stories, people started to disclose to me their experiences, and I got to look people in the eye that had lived the stuff that we'd been hearing about on the news. That's life-changing. You don't get to walk away from that when you see that sort of suffering going on. And so that really, I think, connected all of our team into the issue. particularly when you talk to the kids and you see just how traumatised one experience, one exposure to that kind of behaviour can leave a kid traumatised for life. So, you don't get to walk away from that once you see it.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for, being someone who is willing to do things and really make a change and run against violence. I will have links in the show notes for anyone who wants to check it out. Not just, in Australia, but this is also an issue worldwide. So definitely something that we can all kind of learn from and hopefully, limit in the future. Now, you've mentioned a few times about this 1300K. Now, you did this late 2017. You said it was 1.6 million steps, averaged out 80K a day for 2 weeks. From what I read, you raced 74,000, which is absolutely incredible. But what made you decide to do, this challenge next? And how did you wrap your brain around 80K a day for 2 weeks?
Well, first of all, I calculated the average kilometres wrong, so that helps. I calculated. Maths isn't my strong point. I just look. We put the route together. I wanted to. Gosh, when I was planning the first run in 2014, Broken Hill, which is way up near the border of New South Wales, a very remote community, it kept coming up on my radar. They've got very big problems with domestic violence out there, as a lot of remote communities have, and but they're also winning awards for the work they were doing to solve that problem. So they really were leading the way in terms of how communities can respond to the problem. So I wanted to include Broken Hill even in that first run, but the distances were just way too big for me at that stage. So I couldn't really make that happen. So I guess it was when I was thinking about my next challenge, Broken Hill was definitely always going to be there. And so we went from Broken Hill to Sydney, and we bought the run into the running festival that was happening. So then it was just a case of working out the route to make that happen. And as I say, I was very busy working out the route and the logistics and everything else that I actually miscalculated. I thought I was only going to be doing about 65 kilometres a day or something rather, and it turned out to be up in the 70s. So, but you don't just run that each day. The distances I ran each day varied from up in the 80s down to the shortest day I think was a marathon. So, or the last day was 12K. So it varies quite a bit during the run.
Yeah, and was that your toughest challenge yet?
Oh yeah, definitely. The distance, every time you increase the distance, it brings new dynamics into it. I was really impressed with mentally how well prepared I was for it. It really was a case of pain management, but there's some really, really tough times out there. But I'll tell you what, I've had tougher times in terms of having to push through those barriers. I've had them, tougher times in shorter races. Because, I was inexperienced. When I was inexperienced and trying to do longer distances, and your brain isn't strong, it isn't where it is now. Those times can be really, really difficult. So I tell people not to get distracted by the numbers. It's a big number, but I tell you what, I've been through bigger struggles doing a 100K race. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for sharing that. You recently had a documentary made about you, which must have been a pretty special thing to have. And well, firstly, how did that feel to kind of know that you were being featured and your work, I guess, was being recognized?
I guess I see it as, it's more around the work. The running, again, is just a backstory to some really amazing work that was going on. So, I think the whole team was really proud that we were able to have that impact and that story. We've been able to show that documentary. We estimate probably around about 500,000 odd people have now seen that documentary. And that has started an enormous number of conversations. So it's been seen in schools, it was on TV here and all sorts of things. So to be able to have that as a resource to continue the work has been fantastic.
Okay, thank you. All right. And then, at the beginning I kind of mentioned to you that people might see things like this that you're doing and other people are doing, inspiring, and thinking, well, I could never run that far. I could never do this. I could never do that. What can other listeners who are thinking, I'd really like to make a difference about something that I'm passionate about. What would you like to say to people who are thinking, well, I don't know what I can do. Like I couldn't top that. So what would you like to say to them?
Oh, I think just go and pursue it. It's not about numbers. I think it's about following your passion and using your passion to make a difference to people. So, whether that's 5 kilometres or 5,000 is irrelevant. It's about getting out there and connecting with people and having an impact. And I think you'll find that when you do that, the fact that one of the things that happened during the White Ribbon Ultra was that a lady approached me, and it was towards the end of the run, and she came up to me and she said, "Oh, thank you so much for what you're doing." And she said to me that it wasn't so much about the running that was inspiring her and motivating her. It was the fact that someone had got out and done this for them, and that it was just the act of doing that really was impacting her in a really positive way. And I hadn't actually stopped to think about that at the time because I had been obsessed with, I had a lot of kilometres to run. So that's where my focus had been. But it was the fact that I just got off out there and I did it for them. So that's what I'd encourage people to think about, is just the fact, that you're showing your care. Means a lot to a lot of people, particularly if they're a fairly silent, voiceless part of the community, that it has a profound impact on people, that someone would even put that effort in. So just go do it. Yes,
definitely. And you've kind of mentioned it earlier in the interview about running being a great conversation starter. What is it about running that you enjoy, and kind of why you see that as your vehicle for accomplishing these major things?
What do I enjoy about running? What is it I don't enjoy? The freedom, I guess it's had a pretty significant impact on my mental health. And I see that also then feeding onto other people. So, it's completely changed my understanding of who I am, what I'm capable of doing. It's changed my understanding of how things happen in the world, like how do you make things happen. It's changed my confidence, my outlook on life, my energy. So for me, running has had a profound impact on just so many levels. I guess that's where it all comes from. For me.
Yeah. And what about what's next for you? Now you've accomplished this, I'm sure you've already got something else that's in the works. Or do you?
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
I'm not willing to go public on it at the moment. So we've got another documentary coming out. So We'll go the easy answers first. So that comes out in January. That's based on the 1,300 kilometre run. And then, but yes, I am planning my next big one. It'll be in 2019, and it is much further than I've just done. And that's about all I'm willing to reveal at the moment. We're planning it, but it's So keep your eye out. It's going to be great. It's exciting. I'm excited about it already. But there's a lot of training to be done.
Yeah. And I'm sure just beyond, even just the training or the organization that kind of goes along with it. So just take a minute to talk about, maybe your crew or other people that are involved in this that, do make a huge difference to you in accomplishing something like this.
So it's 12 months of logistics that goes into a run like this. And I have a support crew to make that happen once I'm out on the road. I have my head crewie, Brad, who has been on the last 2 adventures with me and hopefully will join me for the next one. But there's a lot of planning around the route, and also then things like fuel and food and vehicle maintenance and safety and medical and all those sorts of things. Huge amount to work out because we're dealing with remote areas. for a lot of this. So we've got to be able to work out what happens if the vehicle breaks down. We're 300 kilometres from anywhere. So there's a lot of that goes on. So on the 1,300 kilometre run I did in September, the other thing was also that added to that was I had my head crewie there, who's very experienced, but we had another 2 people join us for the full length, and other people joined us along the way who'd never been near an ultramarathon before. So they had a baptism of fire going from 0 to 1,300 Ks. So, and the crew has to work really closely together because it's exhausting for them. It's as tough on them, if not tougher on them than on me, to cover those distances and to be on point basically for 19 days straight.
So they run alongside you for parts and then kind of drive ahead and different people change out. Is that kind of how that works?
Yeah, so basically what happens is when I'm running, the vehicle will drive ahead, usually 5 kilometres, and park on the side of the road, and then I run to the vehicle, top up my water and some food, and then do another 5 kilometre leapfrog. Basically we just do that for 1,300 kilometres. And then the crew will jump out at different times and run those legs with me. Okay. For a bit of company, mainly for their sanity as well, because sitting in a car for that long is a bit tough.
For sure, yeah.
And then we switch people in and out of the crew over time, again, just to keep it fresh for the crew as much as anything, so they can get some rest and have a break, because they need to stay on their game. I can get tired, I can lose my brain a little bit, but they need to, they're operating a motor vehicle and roadside safety and all those sorts of things. They have to, stay on the game the whole time.
Very true. Okay, well, Kirrily, thank you so much for sharing. We are just going to take a moment to thank our sponsors, and we'll be back with the Running for Real 4. Are you bored of the treadmill yet? I hated the treadmill and would have done almost anything to avoid it in the winter, but I also didn't have a V at that point, which would have made it so much better, especially with the treadmill capability that LifeBeam have been working so hard to perfect. It works seamlessly and will make the time go by a lot quicker. Well, I guess as quick as staring at a wall can go by, right? Even if you're able to get outside and do all your training, V is the perfect running buddy to keep with you when all those fair weather runners are taking their time off inside because it's too cold or too warm. Last month, I introduced you to V herself in these messages as the virtual trainer to keep you company, and she's so lifelike and real. I hope that kind of came across. If you want to enter to win your own V, go to getv.com/runningforreal and you can enter to win. All 3 of our recent winners are loving getting to know her, and you can too. I really enjoy the clear quality of the headphones, and I think you will as well. Make sure you go to getv.com/runningforreal. Earlier on in the show, I mentioned that Body Health Perfect Amino made a big difference to me, and it really did, especially at this time of year when marathon training starts and things begin to get really tough. This is always a time we feel a bit overwhelmed as the accumulation of miles starts to catch up, especially when combined with those hard, heavy training runs. I found that taking Body Health Perfect Amino made my body recover from training that much quicker, meaning I could really attack those long runs and hard sessions. But it's not just for marathoners, it can be runners of any distance. If you get sore or fatigued during training, Body Health Perfect Amino will help you recover too, and here's why. Your body absorbs 99% of the amino acids in Body Health Perfect Amino, compared with only 48% in eggs and 32% in meat or fish. I would take them immediately after a run, and as they absorb within 25 minutes, that would give me a nice amount of time to stretch, another component of staying healthy. Then you can enjoy your post-race meal. Get 10% off at bodyhealth.com using coupon code TINA10. Okay, Kirrily, just 4 more questions for you, starting with a unique nutrition tip. Is there something you use when you're on the go that you kind of rely on over and over again?
I guess I really look for a good variety of food. So I make sure that I'm getting all sorts of, food in. So whether it's fruit and nuts and, some salt, sweet, all those sorts of things, I just make sure I'm getting a really good diversity of food in rather than relying on any particular food group. And I prefer to, as much as I can, eat whole foods rather than relying too much on supplements and all that sort of thing.
And how do you manage that when is that part of the planning process? Like looking ahead of time to find restaurants or places that offer, fresh quality foods? Like, surely there's parts where, all you might see is like a petrol gas station, and it can be difficult. So how do you negotiate around that while we're on that topic?
Yeah. It's really difficult. We have to plan that ahead as to where the food's going to come from. And often, there's stretches out on the last run where we were literally going for hundreds of kilometres and there's nothing. There's absolutely nothing, not even a building. So, we you have to, we buy the groceries beforehand. We've got an esky in the car and bags of groceries, and basically we prepare our food and take that with us. But you've got a plan. You can't just rock up and think there's going to be food and fuel and things like that out there. And it gets difficult, because in some of those communities we're arriving late. There's not necessarily easy access to fresh food. You just need to plan ahead.
Okay. All right. Thank you. What about a running for real moment, a moment that only runners will understand?
Been plenty of those. I think every moment's a running for real moment, isn't it? And so you don't really, ultra marathon in particular, you really don't get to fake it. So it's, look, there's, like I was saying earlier, I think one of the things that sticks out in my head when you say that is on that 1300K. I'd been in the back of the crew vehicle. There's a lot of inflammation in my lower legs. We'd had 2 physios on the phone to us trying to work out what we're going to do from a pain management perspective. I had ice bags and everything else on my legs, and I got up and decided to try and start running again. And I took about, half a dozen steps, and all this pain just started shooting up through my legs. And I just collapsed on the side of the road, sat down, and I just started bawling my eyes out. I was in so much pain, and my crew came over and just going, well, that didn't work in terms of fixing the problem. I was just saying, at that point I was just saying, I really just repeating out loud that I just want to succeed. I don't want to let anyone down. I just want to make this happen. And so I got back up, and I think anyone who, has done ultra or done a long run knows that feeling of when you just have to get back up. To me, that's it. That's the juice. That's what ultra is about. It's not being able to, boast about the big numbers. It's about that moment when you choose to get back up.
Yep. Well, really, really inspiring words there. And I haven't done an ultra myself, but I'm sure a lot of the ultra listeners have definitely are nodding along with that one for sure. What about a high moment for you and why it meant so much?
Oh gosh. Again, when you've been that low, the highs. When you cross those lines, look, it's there's some fantastic photos online of when we finished the 1300K. As I said, it was at the local Sydney Running Festival, and all my crew were there. We all linked arms and crossed that finish line together. And we went past the Sydney Opera House and the Sydney Harbour Bridge. And it was the most perfect day. Everything was glistening. The harbour was just doing its thing. And as we came up around the corner of the route and got to see the finish chute, and I actually saw the word finish written across it, that's it. I just burst into tears at that point too. It sounds like I cried for 1,300 kilometres. That was just an exhilarating high. To have gone from the most remote part of Australia by foot across all of that country, and then to arrive and to see that word, that was pretty amazing.
Yeah. Well, and I think you earned a few tears running that far, so no one is going to judge you with that. Thank you for sharing. And finally, what do you tell yourself when you're about to begin one of these, adventures, I guess? What is the last thing you say to yourself before you start? Enjoy the moment.
That's my mantra, is just enjoy the moment, be in the moment and enjoy it. Enjoy the privilege that we've got to be able to do this stuff. It's so many factors have had to come together to be able to, my health, the opportunity, all those sorts of things. So I just tell myself to really enjoy it and be in the moment with it.
That's wonderful. And Kirrily, I ask my guests to send me a photo of them in a power pose, something you would do just before you begin, or maybe when you finish, to kind of just, build your confidence or show how proud of yourself you are. Will you send us a power pose?
I'll have to have a bit of a think about it, but I can certainly, definitely.
Okay, great. And then finally, I guess two parts to this. One, any last minute advice or suggestions for someone who really feels like they'd like to make a difference in this world, but not sure how to do it?
Just start asking questions. Contact the people you want to help. It could be, whatever that is, if it's a charity or particular people in your community, and ask them what they need. That's where all of this started as well, is that it was conversations with service providers. I went and asked them what do you need? How can we help? And they said, look, our biggest issue is getting the broader community engaged. Anytime they had events or anything like that, there was always the same people turning up. They were preaching to the converted. So it was, through those conversations that we ended up taking the path that we did. Start talking to people. When you have a really good idea, or when you have good motivation, is probably a better way to put it, the universe will provide. So, ask questions, talk to people. Don't be afraid to talk about your ideas or your motivation or what it is you want to do, because people will help. People will give you the answers. People will make contact, share their networks, all those sorts of things, and it'll just happen. It's an amazing thing to see it happen.
Great, thank you, and really good suggestions there. And then, okay, so if people want to follow you in the future, find out more about you, tell the listeners where they can find more about Run Against Violence, and also just about you in general. And find out what that magic, mysterious thing you're planning in 2018 is, or 2019.
I'm not sure when we'll announce that, but so Run Against Violence is on Facebook, is the best place to join us. So they've got a Facebook page, but also runagainstviolence.com is the website. If they can jump on there, there's lots of information, resources, and different tips on how to get involved with us. We have people all over the globe that are involved with us. It's not just an Australian entity these days. In terms of me, I jump on my Facebook page, which is just /Kirrily Deer. I'd love to have you on there. And that's where I sort of put up more about life in general and a bit about running and some of the stuff that I'm working towards on an adventure as well as a running basis. So, yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time. This has been really insightful and motivational, and I really appreciate all that you've done, and you are a role model in this world. So thank you.
Oh, thank you for having me. And it's having the opportunity to talk about it and hopefully get some more people involved.
You can find links to everything we talked about today at tinamuir.com/episode 47. Now, hopefully you believe me by now that you too can do something amazing, just like Kirrily did. And if you find something that you are just as passionate about as Kirrily is, you can find that passion and you can find out what you can do to help, for that cause, but also help yourself, see what you can do. Now, I just want to take this moment to remind you, if you haven't already checked out the Running for Real podcast series, hopefully you will go to my website or to the show notes to find out more about that. Now, these podcast series will give you 5+ hours of dedicated, concise, to-the-point advice from some of the best experts in the running world. Now, I have people like Hal Higdon, Jay DeSherry, Matt Fitzgerald, Amby Burfoot, Jenny Hadfield, Elise Kopecky. There's so many really big names, and I've rounded up these interviews to give you 6 to 8 episodes in each of the following categories: mental training, nutrition, first-time runners, marathon training, coming back from injuries, and pregnancy/postpartum stuff. If you check out tinamuir.com/series, or again, like I said in the show notes, you can find out more information, and hopefully you will check out those series because, like I said, that's 6 to 8 episodes in each of those areas. Could be really helpful for you, and I work so hard getting those just right for you. So hopefully you check it out, and I hope you have a wonderful week.
Thanks for listening to the Running for Real podcast. Be sure to check out tinamuir.com for show notes and even more helpful running information.